Alright, people, how we doing, man? Where we got to? Just, whew. Alright, so, okay, just share this. Wa alaikum assalam. See people tuning in. Alright, I'm just gonna alright, there it is. Just sharing this, folks, just un momento. I'm almost done. Alright. Inna alhamdulillah wa kafah. Wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulih al-Mustafa. Wa ala ibadi alladhina irtada. Wa man bihudahum ihtada. Wa bi athari ahli al-Madinah iqtafa. Wa ba'd. فسلام الله على القوم أهلا وسهلا بكم ومرحبا وبخير راغلة وحوانين لايتس وbienvenidos a todos Khushamadid and Swagatam, people, Swagatam. So, alright. What's going on, folks? What's going on? Alright. Alright, just one moment. So what's going on, folks? Superman, alright. There you go, people. Alright. Whoa, Waqasha. Ahlan wa sahlan. Hassan Zahid saying Superwoman. Huh? Hassan Zahid, gee, if the women you know look like me. I don't know, you know, I mean, if they've got that tash growing like that and if they're sitting there, then your problems are bigger than Bukharigate. So, what's going on? So what's going on, people? Can you give a shout out to my friend Tawheed Khurshid? You're doing it, you're doing it. Right, so people, compliments, ya salam, trying to create controversies. But I appreciate the compliments. I mean, I would say astaghfirullah, I don't like compliments, but then that's only a pure kafir could lie like that. My iman stops me from lying. So, right. Deborah, alaykum assalam. Bukharigate getting old now. Oh, yeah, but I'm just going to touch up tonight on a few, some more hadith from Sahih Bukhari as an example. Allah. I've noticed that there's no comeback. Ya salam, ya salam. Alaykum assalam. People are asking, when is Eid? When is Eid? Come on, seriously. Eid is, for God's sake, it's the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, so Dhul Hijjah's already began. So if you're still looking for the moon, you're a bit late. It's Eid, folks. It's either Eid for certain people, they're doing it on Tuesday. Certain people are doing it on Wednesday. It's all good. You know, this topic, in fact, let me explain that because a few people have asked that. Right, so So on this Eid issue, and then we'll come back. I will be covering today a few more Hadith and just touching up on Bukharigate, and a few more I'll raise awareness and consciousness on some embarrassing and insulting Hadith that are part of that unreliable fake tradition. So this is why the whole topic of Bukharigate was and is as important as it is. So we'll get to that a bit later on. Salam from UAE, Shihab Sharif. Right back at you. Alaykum as-salam. Right, Pamela Sue, alaykum as-salam. Ayub, you're doing it. As to the Eid issue, well, this goes back to a classical debate on, do we have to look out for the moon is it a global sighting, or is it a regional, localized sighting? Now, if we're going to be honest, and you know how I love honesty. Honesty is just my weakness. Anyway, right, so Muhammad Habib all the way from Islamabad. Alright, man, some awesome stuff going on in Pakistan, so we'll mention that in a moment. But right, so if we're going to be honest on this discussion, really historically there were there's three layers or three perspectives to this debate. There was the regional, there was the global, and then there was the truly global. So there's the true one, the truly global one. So the issue is that in the past, people said there was a split amongst the madhabs. Generally, certain scholars felt that things really need to be very regional, very local regional, like each town to itself, that's all. And this is like taught within the Shafi'i school quite a bit. Then people felt, no, it doesn't need to be to the town, it can be the entire region, as in what would today span maybe a few countries. Do you understand? And this understanding is taught by Imam Malik as well. Some people, now there was confusion on when you span countries, are you talking about global? And it's almost like a spectrum. So you have from Imam Abu Hanifa, the Hanafi madhab, saying it's a global sighting. And you have from Imam Malik in some transmissions saying it's a global sighting. But then they had a truly global perspective with when people were asked, oh, so if you're in Muslim Spain, would you really care about Khorasan, which is modern day Afghanistan? And they said, of course not. What have they got to do with us? So Ibn Rushd or these scholars, generally Ibn Juzay, or you'll get Ibn Abdul Bar, they will transmit these statements that to the extent they will say, if you're in Spain, what about Saudi, Hijaz? And people will say that don't be crazy, that's way too far. So when we're saying global, we don't mean global like that. So that is that's the kind of so there was a truly global perspective which nobody historically operated by, because if anything it was just in theory. There was no way on earth you had a real-time or even a soon enough connection with people continents away. Like literally, not just like, I know Africa and Europe are a continent away, but from Spain they can be very close, but continents that are in, like, truly, when we understand the term continents away, like, so somebody's in Europe, somebody's in Asia. Now that kind of stuff, Muslims never really saw that as we have any connection with them on things like this. They just saw them as, yes, they're Muslim, they do their thing, we do our thing, and there was no impact, there was no consequence. The problem is today, and I say problem, it's not necessarily a problem, but it's a challenge. The challenge today is we live in a day and age where everything is I mean, it's a global, it's not even a global village, it's become a global household. And that too in real time. Like, I'm here now, I'm talking to somebody right now. That could be in Egypt, let's say, or could be talking to somebody in Turkey, could be talking to somebody in Saudi, in Pakistan, in China. I could be talking to them right now in America. We're thousands of miles apart from each other, and everybody's discussing in real time. So the problem with this, or the challenge with this, is things have all of a sudden, some discussions have become real. Right? So all of a sudden, somebody's saying my biceps are down. Well, I'll have to kind of like go to the gym, inshallah. Get them back into formation. Has for you, Mubashir. There you go. So the point is that, look, so this has now become very confusing for people, because on one hand, they can see that everybody agrees that we pray our salah according to our own times. So we don't pray when the sun is coming up or setting in Saudi Arabia or Egypt or Morocco or Turkey. We do it in accordance with our own time here in the UK, as an example. Everybody agrees on that. What they disagree on is the moon sighting. Now, as far as evidences are concerned, there's two ways to look at this. What are all these fireworks going on? Is this Eid? Is that what it is? I mean, but could be. So people, you see, as far as evidence is concerned, I would be inclined to the understanding that each region does their own thing. This is today the general understanding. Each state, each country, ideally, ought to do their own thing. This is my, this is in terms of evidentially speaking, from an evidence perspective. This is what I think. People, that's from pure evidence, so that's just theory. When it comes to practice, so in theory, we generally should not be following Saudi Arabia. I mean, we shouldn't be following Saudi Arabia anyway. I mean, sorry, let me rephrase that. Saudi Arabia is riddled with so many problems. So that's a discussion in itself. But put that aside, from a theory perspective, we ought to be following our own region. This is what I think. But then there's, from an applied perspective, am I sure there weren't gunshots? Nah, Birmingham isn't that bad, despite the reputation. Birmingham's actually a loving, peaceful place. So, now, from a applied perspective, what I would say is that we really, I think, whatever brings about convenience, ease, unity to whatever possibility we can stretch unity. I know there'll never be absolute unity on things, but at least some meaningful kind of sense of unity, then we ought to just go with that. Birmingham is loving but filled with jihadists and brilvi fakirs. True, I mean, there are some nutcases, like when it comes to ideological, like they're warped, their understanding of Islam. But I hope that, you know, it's changing. I think one thing about Birmingham is that it has a uniqueness that I think other cities here don't have. One, with the Muslim presence the way it is, and secondly, because every group kind of exists in a strong proportional manner, therefore it kind of dissolves the authority of any group. So there is no overarching, there is no dominating group within Birmingham. Therefore Islam is however you want it. Just the way I love it. So yeah, so I mean, that's a side note, a tangential note on Birmingham. Bromtown, the heart of England, people. That's what it is. I have to say, I do have a deep love for Birmingham. Right, so some people laughing. Well, I genuinely do. I have had in the past many offers on several occasions to move to places, and people even like with very good kind of financial an impetus. So, but Birmingham is where the heart is, people. So no. Right, so coming back to this discussion, one thing I also love about Birmingham, this is just for those of you that don't know, there is actually, you know, for people like me who are vampires, we're like kind of vampires, people. We live with darkness, we rise. Okay, there is an absolute, it is 24 hours. Like, you want to hit the gyms are local 24 hours. You want to get food is local 24 hours, almost. I mean, almost 20. Chill out at these places. It's all, I couldn't even, you know, I struggle to find places like that even in London that would stay open late, where you could sit and just chat and have food and stuff like that. Anything beyond 1 o'clock in London, and even though London is London still. But anyway, coming back to these discussions, people. So I think whatever could bring about a sense of unity, you do Eid with them. Okay? So that's what I think, yeah. So if your family are doing Eid on Wednesday, you just go with Wednesday. I'm personally going to be doing Eid, I think, on Wednesday. That's what my family generally are doing, and it doesn't bother me. I mean, what difference does it make? It's not like I'm doing the Hajj. In Ramadan, I suppose it's more of an issue, because when you're fasting, not fasting. When it comes to Eid al-Adha, it makes no real difference to people. I don't know, it makes no real difference to me. But I would go now, I would leave the stronger opinion, let's say, which is regional, if it meant there would be more unity. And I would advise people personally to. I never used to think like that before. So if you asked me, I don't know, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, definitely 4 years and regressing, I definitely didn't think like that. I used to be like, no, the opinion, we should be with what is more accurate. We should go with just Morocco, which is close to us, or we should go with regional sighting. And that's how but with time, I think, I don't know whether it's age or or whatever, I suppose you're kind of developing sense of maturity, and you just think, what the hell is all of this on about anyway? I mean, why are people doing it? Like, the main thing is to kind of have a sense of happiness, isn't it? So I think so. You know, as the poet says, that Eid ka din hai gale lag ja zalim. That it's the day of Eid, at least now give me a hug. That's what the person says. Says, rasme dunya bhi hai, mauqa bhi hai, aur dustur bhi hai. That, you know, we've got all the reasons on earth to at least hug it out today. That's what the poet says. It's an awesome poem. Come to Pakistan. Yeah, perhaps to visit. I mean, I like what Imran Khan has been sworn in as the Prime Minister. That's really exciting. It's interesting. I think there's also going to be a hell of a lot of challenges for him. I think, I don't know what he will be able to deliver within a term. Is really a short span of time, considering how messed up a state is, a country is. So I'm not really sure what he'll be able to deliver. I sure hope, inshallah, may Allah make him successful in granting restoring some of the progress and dignity that the country deserves. So, inshallah. So, Zindabad, huh? Salams from Tanzania. Alright, Twaha. You're doing it. Need a cheap, don't worry. I know Imran Khan will deliver, as he's a Maliki too. That would be awesome if he was. But I like the way, you see, he's actually very kind of religious, which is surprising. I mean, such a cool, like, I mean, one, obviously he's a stud. So that just counts for him straight away. But he's a cool kind of guy. He's somebody you'd be proud of. He's very principled. He's very religious, which is surprising. But at the same time, he's somebody who's religious, but you know he's not a nutcase. He's the kind of person you would trust with religion. You know, you wouldn't trust these mullahs with religion. They're the kind of people that would, you know, they like I say, they're the kind of people that would slaughter you but whilst doing wudu. You know, they'll be like, they'll do wudu and then slaughter you with khushu'. They'll be like, mashallah. You know, this is what I mean. Like religion is just so dangerous. But he's the kind of person you would trust with religion. Why is it difficult to hire a car out on Eid? Come on, is this the problem? Ain't people over all of that now? That was like in the late 90s. It used to be a big thing. People used to hire cars out and do stuff. I suppose they probably still do it now, but does that even have any excitement left to it? I don't know. I'm just... can a fatwa be affected by the mood of a mufti or age of mufti? Hell yeah, it can be. You know, muftis, if they're buzzing or if they're vexed out, they're haram, haram, haram. You know, it's... You know, so obviously these things, they do impact. There's a story that this Imam Sahib, they made him lead the Taraweeh prayer and they promised him a certain amount of money. So at the end they didn't deliver and they only gave him a certain amount, like in the beginning as a deposit, and they didn't deliver the rest. They go, look, don't worry, it's for the sake, you know, it's a religious thing, you don't really need the money. And so he was vexed, obviously, he was worked up. So his response was, yeah, whatever. He goes, well, so many of the prayers, I didn't even pray them on wudu anyway. Like, I didn't even have wudu for them, so it serves you right. Life, and life. Some memories, some memories, people. I remember once, I'll share a memory with you folks. I remember many years ago, when I was doing my hifz, memorizing the Quran in Islamabad, in Pakistan, towards the latter part of Ramadan, they allowed us to go home, so on our break. So I'd gone home to the village. So this is into Azad Kashmir, those ends. Now, I was there, and you see, because I'm memorizing the Quran, I'd done perhaps about 16 juz or something like this. So I'm there and I go to the Taraweeh, and in the daytime I go into the Masjid, so the Imam sees me and he knows that who I am and he knows that I'm here memorizing the Quran. So he said, oh, mashallah, you're back, you're here. So I said, yeah, I'm just here on a break. And he said, yeah. And so I just, you know, small talk. I just said, mashallah, what juz are you guys on today? So he said to me, how many juz have you memorized? And, you know, back then, I don't know if I was naive, but I think there was an adopted simplicity. I had a very simple, you know, in my very early practicing days when I, obviously I was always Muslim, but when I became fully, like, I immersed myself into, I want to learn, and I took a very ascetic kind of simple approach and very kind of hermetic, like became like a hermit. So this was in my late teens, and I used to do very, you know, like, I don't want, this is why I understand when people are going through this stuff, because I went through it as a teenager, right? So for a short while anyway, until alhamdulillah, Allah rescued me from, but there was that kind of hermit lifestyle, and you got to give this up for the sake of Allah, and I'll just give it up, like whatever it was, I would give it up. Like I wouldn't, like I remember one of the things was I used to have long hair, yeah, so, you know, with the undercut back then, so you could kind of tie it as a ponytail thing. So I used to have long hair like that. And I remember people saying, this is haram, you can't have this, you know, for the sake of Allah. So I straight went to the barber, said, shave all my head. Like, I was, like, for me, it was, if I want Islam, you know, whatever people, because at the time I didn't have knowledge. So what people told me to be Islam, I perceived it to be true. And so I just made the sacrifices. Like, people told me you're not allowed to have luxury in life. So I just, fine. Like, I just gave stuff up. People actually told me that it's really sunnah. You shouldn't, you know, people ought to kind of lay out mats and sleep on the floor and stuff like this. So, so I was like, okay. So I went through all of this kind of, these phases. So when I see people going through that stage of Islam, I identify, I understand why it's not that I don't have an understanding, that they think like, oh, this guy, what does he know? I went through that, but alhamdulillah, I went through it at an age where it was just deemed a phase. And I was young, and then with time I kind of started to learn stuff, and so alhamdulillah, I was kind of gave up that kind of nonsensical approach. But anyway, back to this village. So I was there, and I said to him that I've memorized the Imam, I've memorized about 15 juz. So he said to me, now I've got one of those major mattresses, one of those, oh yeah, one of those proper sink-in awesome ones. But you see, at that, so I told him I've memorized half the Quran. So he said, the Imam said, oh, right, that's okay, we're ahead of you, you don't know, you haven't got to, we're on the 17th juz. So I was like, oh, okay. Now, come Taraweeh time, I'm there, and the Imam's, he starts reciting. And I wasn't paying attention first, and then I start listening, and he's just reading nonsense. Like, he's not reading anything. He's just going, and then he's just saying like a random, like a common phrase to end, like verses like, Allahu Akbar. And then I was like, huh? Like, what is he reading? And so what caught my attention is he started reading certain verses from like Surah An-Nisa. So I thought, okay, isn't that Surah? Didn't he say to me he's on the 17th juz? So now I started to pay attention. Like, what is he reading? So he was reading nothing. He was just going like, Allahu Akbar. So I was like, how come I can't make out anything he's reading? Apart from like, you know, Inna Allah kana bima ta'maluna basira, Inna Allah kana khabirum bima ta'malun, just like, Wallahu alimun basir, and you just say like few words like that, and that's it, go into sujood. So I'm thinking, nah, maybe come on, it can't be like. So I'm thinking, zoom in with. So he starts reading random verses from like a verse from Surah Yasin, like a popular verse. So I'm thinking, what? Isn't that verse from? And then he'll read a popular verse from Surah Baqarah, and then he'll just go. And in between he'll put like a verse, a real verse, but like a popular one. So let's say you're going to say something like, I don't know, like he's going to, وَمَا كَانَ مُحَمَّدٌ, you know, like, أَبَا أَحَدٌ مِّن رِجَالِكُمْ. Now that verse isn't going to come in other places of the Quran. So you're thinking, wait a minute, isn't that verse from... And then he'll just jump to a verse from like Surah Baqarah, and you're thinking, oh, well, I know that verse very well. That verse is from Surah Baqarah. And you're thinking, what is he? And then he'll just go, and then I realized this guy's blagging it. He's in full-on blag mode. This guy's blagging the hell out of the qira'ah of the Quran. He's not reading any Quran. This is nothing. So I was like, acha, cha. Ye game khel rahe hain aap. This is what's going down. So afterwards, we finished, and so he's gone into his kind of room where he had this, you know, the Imam's room. So I've gone in there, right? So he's seen me, he's incredibly nervous. And the guy's like, he looks at me and he's like, so he's waiting. So I don't want to embarrass him, right, too much. Like I wanted to see his response. So I go, mashallah. So I go to him, mashallah. So when it was a bit, so there were 1-2 people still there. I said, mashallah, mashallah. I said, yeah. I said, yeah. What juz were we listening to today? And so he looks at me and he goes, the 17th juz. So I was like, mashallah, mashallah. So I had like one of those straight faces. I go, mashallah. So I go, how was the, I asked him, I go, how was the tilawa? What do you think? How did you find it? He was, oh my God. Because now the cat was out of the bag. The game was busted. He knew I was onto him. So he just went, I go, now, how did you find the qira'ah? How was it? Was it? And so he goes to me, what do you think of it? I go, I think mashallah. So what happened is he waited for 1-2 of these people to leave the room. And then he goes to me, please, I'm so sorry. He goes, look, what it is that I've been, he goes, I know the Quran. He's the Imam of the mosque. And this is a mosque where they have darwish, so they have students who also, they teach them hifz as well, basically. They call them, in that part of Pakistan, we call them darwish. So these kind of students who live in the mosque and study like that. So, and he wasn't like a young lad. I mean, he was young. What I mean by that, he wasn't like a teenager kid or something. This guy was probably like maybe in his late 20s, 30, like that kind of age. So I was probably just at the time about 19 or something like that. So he goes, he said to me, oh, you know what it is? I know the Quran's solid. Trust me, I know it so well, you can test me, but I have this disease, I have this illness. He goes, when I stand up on the musalla, on the sajjada, when I stand on the mat, I forget everything. And it's like it's an illness I've got. Trust me, it's a mental illness. I'm not, I'm not trying to mess around with the Quran. I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to do this. I'm not trying to do that. And so it was hilarious, man. So he goes to me, please, like keep my, my dignity. Don't expose me. Don't do this. Don't do that. So I just said to him, look, it's not my business. Yeah. But you know what you're doing is wrong. You're misleading these people, man. I said, like, look, if you can't read the Quran, then don't read it. Like, or if you want somebody else to read it, get them to read it. Or if you're going to read short surahs, read short surahs. But don't kind of like, this is like a joke with the Quran. And I said, look, as far as exposing you is concerned, like, I go, look, you know what you're doing is wrong. Allah knows what you're doing is wrong. And it's not going unknown, like people know this. But I said, it's your responsibility. I'm not here about trying to create some drama about you, but I just think this is wrong. And, and he said to me, he said, look, I've just got tomorrow's day left. And then I'm going to make one of those students read the rest of the Quran. So please. So I was like, yeah, cool, whatever. I just said, look, whatever. Like, basically you know what's right and you know what's wrong. And then I just really didn't attend the mosque after that. But yeah, man, some interesting fun and games, huh? And then that good for nothing, check this out. See, when you do something, when you help someone, he, like after that, he was suspicious that I had told people. I hadn't, I just keep myself to myself. He went to my grandfather, who was quite a simple man, lived his life. My paternal grandfather was a simple man. Not my maternal grandfather. He was a don in the making. But this, my paternal grandfather was a very simple, somebody very religious, always prayed his tahajjud, always read the Quran through a certain portion of the night. Very kind of simple, like a man like that. And he went to him and he said, oh, do you know your grandson, has become a Wahhabi. Like, check that out. Like, what the hell? And you told him that he's destroyed his Islam and he's done this and he's done that, and like, not that obviously I wasn't a Wahhabi, but the point was that just as a propaganda, just to, in case I expose him, so he wanted to take a preemptive shot at me. Yeah, Paki politics, huh? This is what they call in the local lingo slang a shoddi shot. That's what he did. But anyway, so now let's get to some of these questions, people. Let's get to some of these questions. What's going on? I thought I don't know why that memory came up, but I thought let's share it with you guys. Will all humanity walk on the bridge thinner than the hair on the Day of Judgment? No, this kind of stuff, you know, this, in all honesty, if you're going to view this, although Muslims seem to have incorporated that as part of our belief system, the evidence is really weak, and it seems to be a belief taken from Zoroastrian, from the Zoroastrian faith. And many Muslims have just incorporated that we're going to walk on a bridge. What the hell? Why are we going to walk on a bridge? Like, the afterlife is not a life of test. So those who are going to have their judgment, they're going to still get to be tested. They're going to walk over a bridge with hell underneath and heaven in front, and it's sharper than a blade and thinner than a hair, and exactly the same description from the books of Zarathustra and, you know, the Zoroastrian faith. And in their thing, it's about the kind of sons of the god, and the whole thing is about the evil one. He's supposed to fall into hell and stuff like this. But this really has no Islamic, it makes no sense from an Islamic perspective. What is this even on about? And it bears no resemblance to the Abrahamic faiths. So this kind of, we're going to walk on a bridge. What is that about? So yeah. My opinion on slaughtering the sheep. So it comes from the Persians. Yes, I believe that came from the Persians, and I believe it came as Islam expanded into what was Persian territory, and Muslims that came and embraced Islam. It's very reasonable to understand that they would have influenced Islam to some extent. And this is amongst the kind of things with the expansion of Islam. Amongst other things that got our influence was the messianic concept, that Jesus will come back and all this kind of stuff as well. It's all, this stuff is all kind of made up along the way. It's not part of, I know people wrote it in books later on, that there will be a Mahdi, there will be this. I mean, why do we need a Mahdi when we've had our Prophet? You know, who could be a greater Mahdi than our Prophet? Mahdi means the rightly guided. And why do we need a Mahdi after we've had the Messenger of God? You see, this kind of stuff, it ridicules Islam, in essence, because, and it makes people very lazy. You know, we don't need to help ourselves. We need to wait for the Savior will come and save us. The Savior isn't going to come. You're either going to save yourself, and you know, historically, this kind of attitude. There were Muslim cities at certain points that were attacked, and what they did is they sat around and started reading Sahih Bukhari, and they started reading because they believed this will cure them. It ain't going to cure anything. You see, like, you need to use your sense that God has given you, and this kind of stuff here. So this is all folklore religion. It exists amongst Muslims commonly. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. It exists in many religions. It's typical folklore religion. We're awaiting for some savior. Savior will save the world. Am I saying the Mahdi won't come? There is no such thing as Mahdi. The Mahdi thing is more interesting in some ways than the Jesus thing, because the Mahdi thing is actually a kind of Shia concept that emerges through Shia Islam. And when I say Shia, I mean very early Shia to Ali, that kind of partisan kind of movement, which later on becomes the full-on Shia kind of religious movement, but in the beginning it was more like a political and that kind of movement. So the Shia really, and this Mahdi is really centered around, it's really interesting, around several figures, but one of the key people it fits is Muhammad Nafs Zakiyya and his rebellion at the time. And he's in the time of Imam Malik, and Imam Malik was really fond of Muhammad Nafs Zakiyya, but people knew this will only end badly. See, rebellions just don't work like that. People will crush them, and because the people that crush them will crush them with might, you understand? Like if you're going to go about something with a kind of... And Muhammad Nafs Zakiyya was a very pious person, so they knew this just wouldn't work. And he was crushed, and the whole thing was crushed. But you see, this whole Mahdi thing fits him. Muhammad, his name was Muhammad, his father's name was Abdullah, he's from the family of the Prophet, he's from... You know, the whole story and the description of what a Mahdi is supposed to be was him. Most likely, this is what it is. And then it kind of crept. Then obviously, as it failed with him, it stayed as a hope. And then it went on. And Muslims, no Sunni or majority Orthodox Muslims incorporated the Mahdi belief in any of their early Aqīqah books or anything. And then hundreds of years later, like probably 300-400 years after the Prophet, mainstream Sunni Muslims also started to take on the Mahdi concept, that a Messiah will come, this Mahdi will come. So it's interesting, and Ibn Khaldun, the famous Maliki from the 700-800, he speaks about this, and he speaks about how every single hadith with this is weak or fabricated, and how this crept in through Shia Islam into mainstream Islam. So, right, so what are we saying now? Was Bukhari, we're going to come on to Bukhari, are all weak hadith about the Mahdi? Yes, every single hadith about the Mahdi is weak. Every single hadith, I've also argued, about Jesus coming back is weak. And that's through a different argument. But yeah, but about the Mahdi, every single hadith is weak about the Mahdi. Yeah, what does it mean? But sorry, every single hadith that is clear, and that is clear. Not just something that you could interpret it to mean many things, but it has to be clear about the Mahdi is weak. Thanks, hun. We love you and UK too. Shukran, shukran. Well, we love you all too, and we love the UK too. How can we be sure the Sunnah is preserved? Can you explain hadith on the encouragement to marry fertile women? What about the infertile? You know, this about marrying fertile women, this was always a problematic hadith. Because it started off by saying that this hadith, that tazawwajul walud al-wadud, that marry the walud, I know walud sounds like a guy's name almost, isn't it? Walid. Doesn't mean you turn around and marry a guy called Walid. So walud means somebody who gives birth a lot, and wadud, somebody who loves or is very kind of affectionate and loving. So okay, the loving thing, fine, you can understand that. The question, the scholars even in the past problematized this hadith, that how do you know who will give birth? Like, how do you know that? So how do you know who is walud? Because, like, obviously, let's say she hasn't had any children. How are you supposed to know, oh yeah, this woman definitely is fertile, this one is... Do you have like a radar that's just like infertility radar? Beep, 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 beep. So like, I would like to offer a proposal to you, to you. I'll just leave you out of it because you seem to be bleeping on the radar. So the question is, how did you know who is walud? Like, how can you know? So the scholar said, I know, look at their family. Like, does her mother have a lot of children? Does her sister have a lot of children? But really, I mean, okay, that may be indicative of some genetic kind of thing. But how do you really know? Like, you don't really know. And the truth is, the infertility could be coming from the guy as well. It doesn't have to be through... you know, like I said, a lot of people reach out to me about relationship issues and stuff like that, and these are not just, you know, many of the men have these kind of infertility issues, and women do as well, and people do. May Allah make, grantees to anybody that's suffering, and anybody that wants children, may Allah grant them children. But what I'm trying to say is that this becomes very strange. Like, this hadith doesn't make any sense. At most, you could say, well, people said the Prophet was trying to encourage people to have children. But it didn't mean the way people think of it today, like, let's just have children and just knock them out. I've got a cricket team at home. Like, what is that about? Like, what does that mean? That, you've just got, 10 children and you can't handle them? Like, what is the meaning of that? And so, wouldn't you rather have a qualitative, like, where you can actually enjoy, and they can enjoy, and they can have a meaningful upbringing, rather than just having so many children that you can't handle, and then you can't really give them that love and affection, and you're just like smacking them around, and or you're just telling them off. What on earth is this? Like, this isn't the way to. So I think people have misunderstood massively this kind of hadith. If this hadith be sahih, if the hadith to do with having children or encouraging people to have children be true, it was simply referring to those people who may have felt that children are burdensome. Okay? Because there are sometimes, I must say, I see sometimes a kind of an attitude that is more prevalent amongst Western people generally, and I don't want to say it's prevalent necessarily amongst, because obviously that's going to be racist if I single out a particular race, but I have personally felt it, and other people have as well, in, let's say, in this part of the world, in UK, in Europe, maybe presumably in America, and it is usually by the general, let's say, indigenous English people here. We will see that there is this thing there are several people that sometimes everything, like when it comes to a child, they see a child as an economic transaction. Like, oh my God, like people have said, if I have a child, I've got to spend this much money every year, I've got to buy nappies, I've got to do this, I've got to pay for their education, I've got to, so they see children as financial kind of bills, like an invoice. And I'm not saying that's every person, I'm not saying that, please do not misunderstand me here, but I have seen this. It's not uncommon, let me put it like that. It's not uncommon to come across this. Like, whenever I've worked in different departments, in different things, in different kind of the public sector, social sector, I've worked in different things. I've seen this resonating from people, that they see children as like a kind of an invoice, that, wait a minute, you gotta, I'm not financially, like people will have careers and they'll say, I'm not financially stable to have a child yet, because you need to spend this much money and this, and that is something that I'm very proud of, that how Muslims have that outlook to Allah, towards children, that they're gifts from Allah, that, like every person brings their rizq. Like, why are you so, like, why are you being like so tight-fisted? Like, people bring their kind of providence with them, that don't worry about money, it will come. Like, things will come. Like, don't look at a child as a bloody, like, a tax invoice. Like, see them for the blessings that they are. And, because they not only are they life, but they bring life to people. I've got to say, so, I mean, the bond I have with my own kids, with my daughters, especially whilst they're at this age, God knows, God knows the monsters they'll become in their teenage. But whilst at this age of just being like 4 years old or 7, it's an incredible bond. I don't, so I can't see how people don't see things like that. But anyway, that's my thoughts on it. People may disagree. Cool. Somebody asked me, where are you from? From Birmingham, UK, people. What about the ulama saying a hadith can repeal an ayah of the Quran? Yeah, I think these things are very problematic in certain ways, and it depends on the context as well, what we're talking about. I don't think we can repeal ayat of the Quran. I believe we can give clarity to verses of the Quran. So, what does the hadith mean, the brother-in-law is death? This is an interesting hadith, that there's a hadith in Tirmidhi that the Prophet is asked about people coming in and out of the home and privacy, and somebody, and then the Prophet says that the woman should have her privacy, and the Prophet is asked, what about al-hamwa? Al-hamwa is the brother-in-law, or it could be any in-law, but it's usually often referring to the brother-in-law. So he says al-hamul maut, that the brother-in-law is death. Now most people understood that to mean like, oh, you should avoid him more so. And many people, you know, and that's how I would probably say most people understand it. But Qadi Abu Bakr ibn Arabi, who's the Maliki don and legend from Muslim Spain, from over 900 years ago, he explains that in his commentary Aqīqah al-Ahwathi as that is al-hamul maut, meaning the way maut is ma la budda minhu, that it is necessary and unavoidable, it is inevitable. In a similar way, this person coming in and out of the home is inevitable. So, you know, he said, like, you can't, like, it's just a way of life. And I think that's, you know, that's fine. And these kind of understandings are urf, they're based on urf, they're based on your culture. I think people should just be natural about these kind of things. I think we as Muslims have started to mask our insecurities, not just now, for a good while. We've been masking our insecurities through religion. So, like, people are so insecure over their women. Like, oh my God, like my wife, oh my God, did she look at a guy? You know, like I had this guy once tell me that, do you know, like somebody told me this is a true story. Somebody told me that, oh, like a friend of his went to drop something off at his house. Like, I don't know, whatever it was. He just to deliver, like just from the door. And he said, like, and the wife wouldn't open the door, so he wasn't sure, so the person's not sure whether anybody's home, so he's phoned his friend and said, look, listen, is anybody home? I'm trying to deliver this. So he said, my wife ought to be home, let me phone her. So he phones her, and she's at home, and he says, can you open the door? Because there's this guy there, and, you know, he's going to deliver this. So she says, no, he's not a mahram. And this guy was like really proud of this. Like, wow. Like, wow. I was like, what the hell? You guys are psychotic. You need some serious... Like, what the hell? Like, why are you so distrustful of her? And why is she so distrustful of herself? Like, what? Is that how it works? Like, what? Like, you open a door, you see a guy, and it's straight on... What, she's gonna have sex with him or something? Like, how? How do these people see the world? Like, do they think every time a woman, like, if she just sees a man, it will be instantaneous, on the spot? Like, people just, you know, like with Velcro or whatever, they just rip their clothes open, and it's just full on, full passion. Is this what they? I mean, if that's the case, then okay, I'm prepared to move out of Birmingham and move to... Where is this place that these people live, man? I mean, so I don't get why people get so insecure. Like, oh my God, my wife talked to another man. Oh my God, Relax, man. I mean, that's not quite how... but yeah, so we start to mask our insecurities with religion, and we start to say that this is a good thing. Like, you know, this is like, oh, this is like ghira and honor, and no, it isn't. It's just insecurity, man. That's just really weird. That's just like, you're just really distrustful of yourself and of other people. I just want to know how things inside your mind actually work. But yeah. Trust me, all the men are wishing, if only the world was like that. People would just be knocking on random doors. It'd be like a full-time job. Like, I'd get up and just knocking on different doors every day. The world would be an interesting place, I must say. But anyway, no. It wasn't the wearing the hijab thing. It was the fact, it wasn't that she wasn't wearing hijab was the issue. It's the fact that she said, I refuse to even engage a non-mahram. Okay, anyway, so, right, what's going on, people? What's going on? Shall we, how can we prove to non-Muslims how the Quran has been preserved? Is it a need to shave newborn babies' hair on either the 3rd or 7th day? Okay, it's not a need. It's part of the Aqīqah. It's just a ritual. It doesn't carry a strong religious emphasis. People do it. It gives them some meaning. They usually, as a ritual, they weigh the hair and give that kind of, in gold, that quantity, those grams, whatever, the value of it in gold in charity. Fine, if people want to do it, there's no problem. It was a Jahiliyyah practice that Islam kind of, just kind of left. Like it wasn't actually an Islamic practice. So this is a good evidence for when people say things like Halloween and all these things are Jahiliyyah practices. So was this. Aqīqah was actually a kind of pagan practice. And they used to kind of smother the blood on the forehead of the child. So Muslims just modified that. They stopped putting blood. They put colour on the child's forehead and things like this. And the Prophet just didn't say anything. He just left it. And so hence Imam Abu Hanifa considered it merely permissible and not recommended. And the Malikiya kind of saw it as, okay, since you're going to give charity and whatever, okay, you can do it, but it's not an emphasized thing. Should you fast on the day of Arafah? Yeah, I mean, it's great to fast on the day of Arafah. If you know, it's obviously, it's for people who are not there. You see, to us, it's in some way gives you an opportunity. If you want to connect, you can connect and have some devotion and alhamdulillah. But it's not a necessary fast. It's not something you must do. It's not something you can look down on other people for. You can't say, what the hell, why are you not fasting? And this kind of stuff would be wrong. Is it rational to believe in angels, but not miracles as you seem to? As I seem like a miracle, or as I seem like an angel? I'm flattered, but I mean, miracle I don't know, but angel I definitely am not. A demon maybe, like... मैं फरिश्तों के सोहबत के लायक नहीं, that I'm not capable of keeping the company of angels. हम सफर कोई चाहिए गुनाहगार सा. I need a companion who's a sinner. I need to be in the company of sinners. That's what the poet says. So anyway, these angelic realms are no good for people like me. Now, can an imam officiate a transgender shahada? Right, Imran Khan is saying gunahgar right there. Well, hell yeah. So why not, huh? Why not? The Lord said that he wants people to be sinful and then turn to his mercy. So, do you need Johnny sins? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi. Look at that, tripping me up, making me read comments. Now people are going to capture that moment. Kahe ko badnaam kar rahe ho yaar, amka. So, right, so the thing about the transgender, I wanted to highlight. Yeah, so the thing about transgender, I think that Muslims ought to, Islamically, we ought to give transgender people the full rights they deserve. If they're transgender, we respect them as transgender. We give them the rights. If they want to become Muslim, we respect that. We ought to, and we need to accommodate for them. Not that they need to. I think like we need to kind of really stop being very, I think over history, Muslim scholars, if I'm going to be honest, have really been, it's just, I can't find a word, like they've done such a disservice. They've just been so raw, is the word, to transgender people. They call them, in the classical books, we call them khuntha. And khuntha is a kind of like an hermaphrodite, yeah. So basically people whose gender is not so clear, and sometimes they can be khuntha mushkil. They used to say the one who had both genital kind of organs, or just one, or the kind of fluid. And the scholars were just kind of very like, they just didn't care about them. It was just like they just said, oh, al-khuntha la tankih wa la tunkah, they can never get married. And that's not fair. Like, what the hell? Like, what do you mean they can't get married? I mean, who made you God? Sorry, did you just upgrade your status to God level? What do you mean? Like, what are they supposed to do? Like, what are these people supposed to do? They're like, oh, don't worry, their reward is with Allah. Get lost. Somebody tells you, sorry mate, you can't have any, just have your reward with Allah. You'll be like, it's alright mate, since you're so eager, why don't you go get that reward? You know, it's alright. Like, so I think this is just unfair, the way they treated them. Like, they have the absolute right to get married. They have the absolute right. Like, we can't, like, Allah's deen is for everybody, for all his creatures, for all his people. It's not just for, and for people who have gender issues, it's for them as well. It's not just for, you know, he's not just my God or your God. If he's God, he's God. So we need to accept that. Right, so what's the other, somebody had asked a question about the Quranic order. No, sorry, the Quranic the preservation. How do we prove it? You see, the Quran, it's not about proving it to people. How the Quran was transmitted is it was transmitted in terms of, it was just an en masse father to child teaching. It was a living kind of tradition that Muslims had. They focused on the Quran. It was the only thing they had. And they had a living practice of how to pray, how to do things. And they just taught that from family to family, and it was what they focused on. It was difficult to corrupt the Quran. Why? Because one, it was transmitted en masse. Two, those who were looking to corrupt it, they always had an agenda, and it wasn't worth the effort. Because if you're going to try to sneak something into the Quran, you've got to sneak it in with a certain style. The Quran then doesn't address every issue. It's got to meet a certain rhythm. It's got to, then other people won't have it. It was way too, the enterprise was way too kind of weighty and too difficult. Hence people moved to corrupting Hadith, because Hadith was easy. It was a soft target. The Quran was difficult because the Quran by its nature doesn't deal with like very detailed issues. So if you corrupted it, what was your, like, you couldn't fulfill your goal of trying to, I don't know, get messages in there. So that's the Quran is different. And what I completely dislike is how Muslims today, because they're getting shaken by Sahih al-Bukhari or the not so Sahih al-Bukhari, they're trying to say, well, oh, well, prove the Quran, then you can't prove the Quran. Like, what? Like, that is such a redundant and disappointing faith. That because your faith in the 100% authenticity of Bukhari is questioned, you decide to, your rebound effect to that is, okay, we should then create doubt for other Muslims in the Quran. Look, the Quran has been transmitted how it has, en masse. We have it as a tradition. Yes, manuscripts, like one of the oldest manuscripts is in Birmingham, in my city right here, and it does match up. That stands to some, it is in many ways testament to the way it's been transmitted. But we as Muslims need to stop this, oh, if one vowel was different and if it was like this, because that's when we start messing ourselves up. Because nobody said things like that in the past. We Muslims started saying things like, oh, if one vowel of the Quran was here or there, and the truth is the Quran is read in many ways with different voweling. So now we just look stupid. So yeah, now, right, shall we take a look at some of these? This guy, no, not so Sahih Bukhari. Denise Abu Isa says, Subhanallah, this guy is such a clown. On that note, my dear friends, let's go to Bukharigate. What do you say? So Bukharigate is me, part of this whole expose on showing that Sahih Bukhari is actually not so Sahih, and it's not actually very reliable in its authenticity of being traced back to Imam Bukhari. So it most likely seems to have had a lot of hands which have doctored it along the way, and they've added to it and they've manipulated it, and then through, like, you know the game, you have like Chinese whispers. I know that's is that, I don't know if that's that's not in a racist way, but we used to call it Chinese whispers. I think it's called telephone as well. Things like that, they play a role in there. You have things like how memory, Bartlett's study of memory, how memory is actually an active agent and reconstructs. It's not a passive agent. So if you read the study of Bartlett and other psychologists, memory, people used to think, is just a passive activity, like I'm just recalling. They realize that memory is actually a creative element. You're actually creating as you're going along. So these kind of things all added, and the truth is it may have a lot of things in there that are spot on, but there's a huge question mark on how do we know. So what we can do is we have the principle. First of all, Islam has already been conveyed through the living tradition, which is fiqh. Secondly, right, and this is not a denial of sunnah. We embrace the sunnah. Imam Malik said the hadith is not sunnah. Sunnah is from the Prophet. A hadith is a one-on-one transmission. Imam Malik's famous statement, alfun an alf, 1,000 from 1,000. The living tradition is your deen. He said this one-on-one will snatch the deen from in front of you. The words of Imam Malik. He said, wahidun an wahid sayakhudul. He said, sayanzi'u deen min bayni yadayk. It will snatch the deen from in front of you. Hence Imam Malik in his Muwatta brings hadith and says we don't act according to them. So, right, so I'm not munkirul hadith. I'm accepting hadith. First of all, I'm embracing sunnah, and even hadith I'm accepting them, but by their standards of the muhaddithin. So the muhaddithin have generally said in theory 3 standards: that it cannot lam yubayin al-ma'qul, it cannot go against reason; lam yukhalif al-manqul, it cannot go against the Quran and transmitted sources like the Quran, authentic sunnah; walam yunaqid al-usul, it cannot uproot an Islamic principle. So as long as these things, it's fine, we can accept it. Is it certain that it's from the Prophet? It's not certain, but it's workable. We can work with it. That's fine. So if you find a hadith on giving charity, on helping people, on being kind, these things fit in with the greater parameter of Islam, that's fine. You can use these things. You know, you find something interesting, it fits in, alhamdulillah. You find something odd, clashing with these things. This one, big problem, my friend. So on that note, and Bukhari seems to solely be transmitted really with, because our taking of hadith has to be bis-sama'. It has to be muttasilum bis-sama'. It has to be connected through teaching. That only comes through one man. Muhammad ibn Yusuf al-Farabri. Al-Farabri. Remember that name, people. Al-Farabri. Not February. So Farabri, this one, dubious character. Farabri, that's where I think the problems began. Nobody that knew Farabri in his lifetime ever vouched for him as a reliable person in hadith. So we are taking all of this from one guy who nobody vouched for. And the people who vouched for him came like several generations after him, like between almost 200 years after him. And that too, did they even vouch for him? There's doubt for it. That's doubtful. What's definitely clear is people who came 300-400 years after him vouched for him. What the hell is that about? How can I vouch that, oh yeah, that guy used to be really, he used to have a good memory. Do you know him? No. Do you know? No. Oh, he was from 300 years ago. Ah. This one not nice. So let's take a look at some of these things in Bukhari, people. Now, people say, I mentioned some of these previously, because what is this book that we're defending? So I want to mention a few others today, just to kind of let this Bukharigate settle in. I have challenged people, come discuss, scholars or people that are calling out on this authenticity of Bukhari with me. No way to be seen, no way to be seen. The truth is, most of them don't even understand this topic. Right, so let's take a look at these people. This one Sahih Bukhari, this one forever. So look at this hadith. Hadith Kitab al-Shahadat, Sahih Bukhari, Hadith 2655. Okay, 2655. A hadith transmitted that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam heard somebody yaqra'u fil masjid. He heard a man reading the Quran in the masjid. فَقَالَ رَحِمَهُ اللَّهِ. He said, may Allah have mercy on him. لَقَدْ أَذْكَرَنِي كَذَا وَكَذَا آيَةً أَسْقَطْتُهُنَّ مِنْ سُورَةِ كَذَا وَكَذَا. He said, may Allah have mercy on him. This man just reminded me of such and such a verse which I had forgotten. The Prophet had forgotten, and I had dropped them from this surah. Look. The Prophet had forgotten the Quran. The Prophet had forgotten the Quran. He heard a man reading it and said, oh, mashallah, may Allah have mercy on him. He reminded me about that verse which I've dropped from the Quran. I forgot that was in the Quran. This is in Sahih Bukhari. Look, it's in Sahih Bukhari, 2655. Right, so, okay, interesting. Right, so this is the kind of thing we're speaking about. Check this out. Whilst we're on this, speaking about the Quran, there's a hadith in Kitab al-Muharibin, a book about rebels and like what we'd call today terrorists and stuff like this. Right, so in this chapter, hadith 6830. It's a very long hadith about stoning. Very lengthy hadith. But in it, first problem is there's something interesting side point here. Interesting side point. That the person says, Wallahi, because Sayyidina Umar was about to say something, radiyallahu an, and the person says he will say tonight something he's never said since he's been the caliph. وَقَالَ فَأَنْكَرَ عَلَيَّ. So the person listening to that said, no, don't be silly. مَا عَسَيْتَ أَن يَقُولُ. مَا عَسَيْتَ أَن يَقُولُ. Which is actually grammatically not that right. It ought to be مَا عَسَى أَن يَقُولُ. مَا عَسَى أَن يَقُولُ. Look, so first of all, I know it's reversed camera, but even in the footnotes, they highlight, it ought to be مَا عَسَى أَن يَقُولُ. So grammatically, it's not spot on. It's not the biggest error, but it's not spot on. It's supposed to match. It's not supposed to be مَا عَسَيْتَ أَن يَقُولُ. It's supposed to be مَا عَسَى. It's about third person. But chalo, this one, we let this one slide, this one, no big problem. Then Sayyidina Umar says, let me tell you, he gives a speech. In the speech, he's saying, إِنِّي قَائِلٌ لَكُمْ مَقَالًا قَدْ قُدِّرَ لِي أَنْ أَقُولَهَا لَا أَدْرِي لَعَلَّهَا. And he begins this whole speech. And he says, Wallahi, إِنَّ اللَّهَ بَعَثَ مُحَمَّدًا. Allah sent Muhammad bil-haqqi, with the truth, وَأَنزَلَ عَلَيْهِ الْكِتَابِ. And he revealed with him the book. فَكَانَ مِمَّا أُنزِلَ مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهِ. And from that which Allah revealed, ayat al-rajam, was the verse of stoning people to death. Now there is no verse of stoning people to death in the Quran. فَقَرَأْنَاهَا. And we used to read it. وَأَقَلْنَاهَا. And we used to understand it. وَوَعَيْنَاهَا. And we used to comprehend it. فَلِذَا رَجَمَ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ وَرَجَمْنَا بَعْدَهُ. And that's why the Messenger of Allah stoned, and we stoned after him. So according to this, Sayyidina Umar, attributing it to Umar, look, disrespecting Umar, attributing to Umar that he is saying that, oh, there used to be this verse in the Quran, and we used to read it, we used to know it. In another hadith, Umar says, if it wasn't for people going to say this and this about me, I would show them that where this used to be read in the Quran. Right, so this is disrespectful to Umar, it's disrespectful to the Quran. It's trying to say that Umar is saying the Quran has changed. This is what it's trying to say. Now, check this out. Disrespectful to the Prophet ﷺ. Yeah. Now this is a hadith from prior to prophethood. It's in Sahih Bukhari. It's under the chapter, the discouragement of being naked in prayer. Karahiyatu ta'arri fi salah. Hadith 364. In this hadith, it's speaking about when they were moving the stones to build the Kaaba, rebuild the Kaaba. At this time, the Prophet is carrying a stone, and he is told by Abbas, فَقَالَ لَهُ الْعَبَّاسِ, his uncle, يَا ابْنَ أَخِي لَوْ حَلَلْتَ إِزَارَكَ. You know, the Arabs used to wear an izar, which is like a sarong, like wrap it round. Like they never used to wear trousers, like that kind of style. They used to wear an izar, so it's like wrap around, kind of a bit like a dhoti that we have in like Urdu style, or a bit like the lungi, but the lungi is usually all tied all round. It's just a loop that you get into. This was open, like a sarong kind of thing. So Abbas says to the Prophet, why don't you take off your izar? Put it on your shoulders and you can carry the stones like that. So he does that. It says, فَحَلَّهُ. So the Prophet opens his izar and he puts it on his shoulders. And then فَسَقَطَ مَغْشِيًا. He falls unconscious. فَمَا رُؤِيَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ عُرْيَانًا. After that day, he was never seen naked again. This is Hadith 364. Wow. This is how we are repaying our prophets with respect. That is nonsense. And then, do you know, the scholars will do acrobatic kind of gymnastics to, oh no, he never got naked, like it was just a bit of his thigh they saw, or a bit of, it says he was never seen naked after that day. The chapter heading is discouragement of being naked. Right, so let's see. Look at this. Describing disrespect. This once again. Right, let me show you people. Right, now. Okay, here. I'm just looking at which one to go through. Okay, here's a hadith in Kitabu Bada' al-Khalq. This is the beginning of creation. It's hadith number, where is it? 3242. Okay. The Prophet is saying, Abu Hurairah saying that we were with the Prophet, and he said, Bayna ana na'im, whilst I was asleep, ra'aytuni fil jannah. Whilst I was asleep, I saw myself of being in paradise. So I was in paradise, I was kind of walking around. And he says, فَإِذَا امْرَأَةٌ تَتَوَضَّأ إِلَى جَانِبِ الْقَصْرِ. I saw this woman doing wudu at the side of a palace. So I said, لِمَنْ هَذَا الْقَصْرِ? Whose is this palace? فَقَالُوا, they told me it's Umar ibn al-Khattab's. It belongs to Umar. So the Prophet said, فَذَكَرْتُ غَيْرَتَهُ. Oh, I remembered Umar is very, like he has this kind of jealousy. Like, غَيْرَ is like translated as in, like he doesn't want that that kind of jealousy, especially to do with women. Like, I don't want you talking to my women folk. I don't want this. I don't want that. Like, so the Prophet said, I remembered Umar and his غَيْرَ. And فَوَلَّيْتُ مُدْبِرًا. So I turned away basically from this woman. Like he turned away. And then it mentions Umar cried and said, Ya Rasulullah, would I ever be jealous of you? Like, what do you mean by that? So, look at this. So this is the Prophet. Like, this is how he's describing the Prophet. Like, oh, like he's seeing this woman and then saying, oh, and seeing this palace. Oh, who's it? Oh, Umar. Oh, yeah, he's jealous about his women and places, so I'll just turn away. And look what light it's casting upon our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, let me tell you what else. So apart from the Prophet forgetting the Quran, the Prophet, look how they describe. Now listen to this. This is a very famous hadith, this one. The Prophet on his final deathbed. This is in Kitab al-Maghazi, the book of to do with warfare and stuff like that, battles, and it's hadith number 4431. That the Prophet, this Ibn Abbas says that Yom al-Khamis on Thursday or on this day, I mean there's some difference. I mean generally they're going with Yom al-Khamis as the day is called Yom al-Khamis. Right, now on this day the Prophet ﷺ became very ill. He was feeling a lot of pain. So he said, فَقَالَ أُوتُونِي أَكْتُبْ لَكُمْ كِتَابًا لَن تَضِلُّوا بَعْدَهُ أَبَدًا. Bring me a piece of paper, let me write something for you so you can never be misguided. So فَتَنَازَعُوا وَلَا يَنْبَغِي عِنْدَ نَبِيٍّ تَنَازَعٌ. So they started to argue amongst themselves, and they started to have like a dispute amongst themselves, and it's not befitting to have this dispute in the presence of a prophet. فَقَالُوا, they said, look how it's portraying the companions of the Prophet of God. فَقَالُوا مَا شَأْنُهُ. What they said, what's up with him? What's up with the Prophet? أَهَجَرَ إِسْتَفْهِمُوهُ. That ahajara means, is he speaking deliriously? Like, is he speaking nonsense? Like, what's he chatting about? Like, ahajara is to speak deliriously, like you ikhtalata kalamuka, like you're not making any sense. This is what they're apparently saying about the Prophet, the companions. I mean, look at the nonsense, attributing that this is not true. Like this kind of stuff, the way it's attributed. We are doing the Shia always use this hadith to attack the companions, and we don't do any justice to ourselves because we're allowing it. So look at this one. I mentioned this one before, right? That right, about seeking a child. The Prophet Solomon, hadith in Kitab al-Jihad 2819, that Solomon alayhi salam, the Prophet, son of Dawood, said, tonight I will have sex with 100 women, or in one narration 99 women, right? And he said they will all give me a baby, they will all give me a child who will become a warrior. And there's a few hadith with the same thing. Now he said they will all give me, and somebody, his friend said to him, say inshallah. فَلَمْ يَقُلْ inshallah. He never said it. So none of them got pregnant except one, and she had a handicapped child. And the Prophet said if he had said inshallah, he would have been given like healthy warrior children from all of them. Now first of all, just look at the absurdity in that hadith. The absurdity in that hadith. Let alone the fact that, okay, I'm going to have sex tonight with 100 women. Or 90 women. In this one, 99 or 100. In the other narration, 90. I mean, let alone the fact that even if you try to calculate that in terms of timings, you try to say, okay, let's just put a time to that. Like, how long does this take? Right? So, even if you could, let's say if that's possible, so you're going to say what? Like, you're going to give minimum what? Like, I mean, you're going to have to. It would be impossible. You would be looking at, I think I did it on a calculator where I said, let's say 15 minutes, which is no way. Like that's, but still, and that went into God knows like 16, 17 hours and 10 minutes. If you said something like that, it went into, I think 15 hours non-stop. This, apart from the ludicrousy of what it's suggesting, that this is a prophet of God trying to say, tonight I will have sex with 100 women that will bear me a child each who will become a warrior, right? Apart from putting the prophet of God, Solomon alayhi salam, in such bad light, right? His friend says to him, say inshallah. Now there's only two reasons he didn't say inshallah. Either he forgot, or he was too arrogant to say it. There's only two reasons. Like, I can't be, like, okay, I'll change the word arrogant. You can't be bothered. A prophet can't be bothered to say inshallah. Look how you're disrespecting a prophet. Or he forgot. Fine, you can forget. But then because he forgot, God punished him. This is a punishment. So God gave him a handicapped baby. So handicapped babies are a punishment from God to a prophet. So God is punishing his own prophet for not saying inshallah, either because the prophet's too arrogant to say it, or either because the prophet just forgot. And even though he forgot, God still decided to punish him by giving him a handicapped baby. What the hell is that about? What the hell? What kind of a picture is that of God? What kind of a picture is that of prophets? What kind of a picture? Why? This is the nonsense that we are seeing. This is the kind of nonsense. So we need to really be transparent with ourselves. That look, yes, if a hadith fits in with the conditions, with reason, if it fits in with, it doesn't clash with the Quran and the general understanding of Islam, and it doesn't uproot Islamic principles, we will accept it. If it does, it will go out the window. And this Sahih al-Bukhari, this is not so Sahih al-Bukhari. Al-Farabri is not a reliable transmitter, and he's the only transmitter you have of this book. Right? So, now look at this hadith. In the virtues of the companions, this hadith is hadith number 3663. It's a hadith by, once again, from Abu Yaman, who says, I was informed through Shu'aib, who is Shu'aib ibn Abi Hamza. Now, by the way, on a side note, we all know Abu Yaman, he didn't even, what did Abu Zur'a, the legend who was even senior to Bukhari, say? Abu Yaman he only took one hadith ever from Shu'aib. He just took a book, which was Shu'aib's book, and started transmitting it. But put that aside, that's a side discussion. In this hadith, the Prophet said, somebody said that Abu Hurairah says, I heard the Prophet say, whilst one day, بَيْنَمَا رَاعٍ فِي غَنَمِهِ, that there was a shepherd amongst his sheep, a wolf came and took a sheep. So the shepherd tried to take it back. So the wolf turned to him and said, so the wolf spoke. The wolf spoke Arabic. Yes. The wolf said, Man laha yawm as-sabah. Like, meaning, who will get this on the day when there is no shepherd? Yawma laysa laha ra'in ghayri, when I'm the only shepherd. Like the wolf. So not only did the wolf speak, the wolf spoke eloquently. Wow, man, yeah. Right, so the wolf spoke eloquently. So whilst he's doing this, another man, like, so, and then whilst a man, so the hadith seems to jump to another scenario. That whilst a man was one day riding, he was riding a cow, like he was on top of the cow, riding a cow. So, فَالْتَفَتَتْ إِلَيْهِ, so the cow turned to the man. I can think of some other jokes, but I'm not going to say them. Right, so God, where my humor takes me. So this guy, so the cow turns to him, and he says, the cow says, إِنِّي لَمْ أُخْلَقْ لِهَذَا. The cow is speaking Fasih Arabic, yeah? So the cow says, I have not been created for this. وَلَكِنِّي خُلِقْتُ لِلْحَرْثِ, but I have been created for ploughing the fields. فَقَالَ النَّاسِ, so people said, Subhanallah, wow, this is amazing. فَقَالَ النَّبِي, and then the Messenger of Allah said, Wallahi, I bring faith on this, like I have faith on this story to to be true. Inni u'minu bidhalik. I believe in that. Wa Abu Bakr. Wa Umar ibn al-Khattab. But check this interesting thing out. Apart from the absurdity of this description of the story, and the chain being so stupid as well, as I mentioned, but put those things aside. Here, the Prophet goes on to say, I believe in this, and Abu Bakr and Umar believe in this, radiyallahu anhuma. The Prophet uses the words, radiyallahu anhuma. These words weren't used like this. These words came much after. Like Muslims, we use these words when we're going to speak about the companions. So, as you can see, the Prophet says, radiyallahu anhuma. Like, mashallah, so me and my companions, radiyallahu anhuma. Like, and which is clearly made. Now somebody could say, yeah, well, okay, the Rawi just put that in. But the whole story, look at it. Trying to say that these wolves speaking Arabic, cows speak Arabic. Cows don't understand concepts like, you know, they don't understand concepts like teleological purpose. And, you know, there's a purpose for this. And wolves don't understand, like, wolves don't have concepts of, like, okay, like future planning. And, okay, what will happen on that day. And you know, animals don't think like this, for God's sake. You know, for God's sake, this is... Okay, so let's just take 1, 2 others. And I'll show you something interesting. Now, check this out, people. There's a hadith in Bukhari, hadith number 3431, once again through Abu al-Yaman, saying Shu'aib, akhbarana. He doesn't say haddathana because we know this one not true, you know, this one not true. And he says, ma min bani Adam mawlud. There is no child born from Bani Adam. Illa, no child, every child from Adam's offspring, including the Prophet. Every child that is born, no child born, illa yamassuhu ash-shaytanu hina yulad fayastahillu sarikhan min massi ash-shaytan. Except the devil touches him, or he is, or kind of like pinches him, or however. Here it seems to say like touches him, and then the child screams out crying. So they're saying this is why whenever a baby is born, the baby cries because the devil touches him. And there's no child born except he has been touched by the devil. Ghair, except. Oh, mashallah, so there's an exception. Oh, yeah. Ghaira Maryam wabniha. Except Mary, Blessed Mary, and Jesus Christ, our Savior. So apart from them two. Wow. So everybody, all of the prophets, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all these things, they've all been inflicted by the touch of the devil. But God forbid the immaculate conception of Mary and the blessed conception of Jesus. They were obviously exempt from this, right? So this is the kind of stuff that people, and it doesn't, like, look, you know something. We say that we have an issue why Shia criticize Aisha radiallahu anha, and that's, I feel, rightly so. Like, you know, she was the wife of the Prophet, and to criticize her is in a way, I feel, to criticize the Prophet, because at the end of the day she was his wife and beloved to him. And the Sunnis have an issue with the Shia about this, that, you know, the Shia go on, they're disrespectful to Aisha radiallahu anha and stuff like that. But look here in Kitabu Fard al-Khumus, Hadith 3104, an Nafi' an Abdullah radiallahu an, that the messenger stood up one day and he gave a khutbah, and he gave a speech. فَأَشَارَ نَحْوَ مَسْكَنِ عَائِشَةَ, and he pointed towards the house of Aisha, and he said, هَا هُنَا الْفِتْنَةِ, this is where the fitnah will be. And he said it 3 times. Ha hunal fitna, ha hunal fitna. This is where the fitna will be. Min haythu yatla' qarnu shaitan, where the devil will bring forth its head. Wow. That's to the house of Aisha. What the hell is wrong with these people? What? This is so disrespectful to our Prophet, to Aisha radiallahu anha, so beloved, and to Muslims generally speaking. We seriously need to be questioning what on earth we're trying to push as... and there were many other things, you know, like little things. I mean, these ain't big things, but once again, hadith like, look, that the Prophet went to sleep, ثُمَّ اضْطَجَعَ فَنَامَ حَتَّى نَفَخ, until you could kind of hear almost like snores, like mild kind of snoring, almost like that deep sleep kind of. And then he gets up and prays and he says, وَلَمْ يَتَوَضَّأ, he didn't do wudu. You know, like this is in Hadith 137. My point is, people, that this is the issue. This is why Bukharigate was so important. And we have to remember this whole book is transmitted on the back of one man, Farabri. Farabri ko nahi chhodenge. Farabri ko janta maaf nahi karegi. The public will not forgive Farabri. Anybody transmitting, I mean, it doesn't have to be just Farabri, but people transmitting this nonsense, this hatred against our Prophet, this disrespect, saying that the Prophet Solomon and this, oh, I will have sex like this, and then being cursed by God, like as punished with a handicapped child, saying the Prophet fell naked, saying that our Prophet married a little girl, saying that our Prophet forgot the Quran and was reminded by somebody, saying our Prophet was sitting there and the revelation came down wrong. He forgot to mention the disabled people, and then he got updated, saying things like, oh, all of these things. Umar ibn al-Khattab saying there was extra verses in the Quran that used to be there. All of these kind of things, people. All of these kind of things. Especially things like this. Look, just think about it. The Prophet saying, I forgot the Quran. Oh, I forgot. I'd forgotten that. Oh yeah, that was the Quran, wasn't it? Oh, I'd forgotten that verse. This is how they repay our Prophet. This is how these Wahhabis, honestly, these filthy haters of our Prophet, honestly, this is how they repay our Prophet. And these Wahhabi sympathizers today, that are like semi-Wahhabis as well, this is how they want to repay the Prophet, with this kind of nonsense. And his companions, they want to repay Umar like that. They want to repay Aisha like that. That Aisha, oh, you know, her house is where the devil is and stuff like this. And this is the nonsense. And you know something? Here's something really interesting. I watched some clip, what is it? Adnan Rashid. Adnan Rashid mentioning me and the authenticity of Bukhari and saying, Mufti Abu Layth, that joker. And then trying to say, oh no, I call him a joker because he cracks jokes. Theek hai Adnan ji, panga le rahe hain aap. I'm telling you, abhi batla dein. Nama aaya hai Sonia, don't worry. First of all, I want to say, Adnan Rashid, because he sent a message to me, a personal message, a voice note, which was very respectful, just after Ramadan, and very respectful, very courteous, and saying that you will be in touch after and stuff like this, and you want... So, chalo, for now, I'm gonna slightly hold out, okay, because you were very respectful in that message. As to this Bukhari thing, forget you, and I'm not sure, I heard some clip him trying to, I don't know whether he was trying to criticize my Arabic. For God's sake, you don't even know Arabic, right? So, before you try to criticize, if that's what you were doing, I couldn't understand, because ironically, his English has an accent. So, I mean, let's put this aside. He said something about this Bukhari thing, and the scholars have said this and this. You could call the ulama of Najd, gather all those Prophet-hating mullahs all together. Combined, they couldn't answer this Bukharigate issue. They can't do tawthiq of Farabri. Farabri, Farabri. You can't establish through Farabri this chain authentically. Put them all together. Who the hell? You definitely won't. Not. I mean, I'm more than welcome. I'm more than happy for you to, inshallah, come and we'll sit and have a chat. This is way above your pay grade. Right, you don't even understand these issues. You don't even know these scholars were the Sudfi and Jiyani's kind of manuscripts, or Saghani, or these kind of people, or these Kushmayhani and the main Abu Dhar al-Harawi's transcript. You don't even know, you don't even fathom this topic, like most of these Mulvis don't. But you could call your great Salafi mullahs to, these prophet-hating people to write on this, and even they can't prove it. But I want to make a point here. I want to make a point. For years on end, people, listen to this point. For years on end, we heard the Salafis, these Wahhabis, telling us, do not follow your scholars, do not blind follow these madhabs, do not blind follow Imam Malik. So what if Malik said it? Walau qalaha Malik. Who is Imam Malik? He's not a prophet, he's not ma'soom. Who is Abu Hanifa? He didn't know so much hadith. Do not blindly follow fiqh, do not blindly follow. Itni mushkil se baba. It took us so long to take these blindfolds off. And now Allah has shown us this day that when Bukhari has been questioned, they are saying, but Ibn Hajar said it was okay. Suyuti said it was okay. Follow them. Why should we think about it? We should follow. I want to say, oh my, I never thought I'd see the day where the Salafiyah want us to blind follow. Ya Allah, how I love you. For showing us this day when these Wahhabis want us to blind follow Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. Why should I blind follow Ibn Hajar? Badi mushkil se ye patti utare hain. I've taken off these blindfolds after so long. Nah, I'm not going back to blind following. Show me the dalil that Bukhari is authentic, that it can be traced back to Imam Bukhari. Show me the tawthiq of Farabri. Show me how these manuscript discrepancies can be reconciled. Show me, how does that work? Bukhar aa jayega, Bukhari nahi aayegi. These people will get a fever, but they won't get Bukhari. Why should we blind follow now? It's way too late to blind follow now. You went on for years banging on about taking off our blindfolds. Well, we've taken them off now. Now we don't play these 50 Shades of Grey games anymore. So no more blindfolds, my friend. Ab sahat. Prove to us. Nah, Baba, nah. I want Farabri. Farabri ko janta maaf nahi karegi. So I want to say to these people that are going on, if they want to debate me on the authenticity of Bukhari or other people or these shuyukh, reach out to me. Let's have a dialogue. If you feel confident that you can establish the authenticity of Sahih Bukhari beyond reasonable, remember, the most authentic book on earth. Most authentic. Why should we listen to Mufti Abu Layth? Ibn Hajar said it was authentic. Did you know Ibn Hajar didn't even rely on this same copy that you're relying on? He relied on Abu Dhar al-Harawi's copy, which had at least 200 hadith short from what you have. And did you know Ibn Hajar also said that we ought to accept the satanic verses? He said we ought to accept the satanic verses because the chains of the hadith are okay. So let me get this right. The satanic verses in which the Prophet made up verses of the Quran to appease the kuffar, or in the lesser version, the Prophet, whilst he was reading and took a breath, the shaitan in the voice of the Prophet read out verses of the Quran that were made up. These verses where the Prophet says, Al-Layth wal-Uzza wa Manat al-Thalithat al-Ukhra, that this is in Surah An-Najm, that these three gods, that, and the verse actually says after that, that these are just names which you have made up. But the satanic verses claim that in between the Prophet made up some verses where he said, Tilka al-Gharaniq al-Ula, that those huge tycoons, these huge beings, wa inna shafa'atahunna laturtaja, that indeed on the day of judgment their intercession will be sought. So all of Quraysh, because the Prophet appeased them and he tried to suck up to them with their gods, they fell into sujood, into prostration. Right? So Ibn Hajar said, but it was Hassan. He said this is Hassan. He said it's not da'if. He said it's not weak. He said it's acceptable. And guess who else said? No. This one not nice, my friend. Guess who else said? You guessed it. You nutty. Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Taymiyyah said the satanic verses are okay. What on earth is going on with these scholars? How on earth are the satanic verses okay? How on earth is this okay? This is what they say. Salih al-Munajjid on his website, Islam QA, is asked the question, what do you have to say about Ibn Taymiyyah saying that this is okay, the satanic verses? He says, oh, this is a valid difference of opinion. What kind of a valid difference of opinion is that? That the Prophet, he made up some of the Quran. He used to appease kuffar. Oh, and trimming your beard is not a valid difference of opinion. This one not nice, my friend. This one teasing us too much, you know. This one, we don't know what's going on here. So these people, when they say, so this is why I get kind of worked up, you can imagine. When it comes to the honor of the Prophet, they don't care. Our Prophet, they can say he's a pedophile. It doesn't matter. He's looking at 6-year-old girls with the intention of marriage. He's marrying them and having sex with them, and they're underage 9-year-olds. They're not even obligated to pray. But he's having, this is what these people are trying to portray about our Prophet. Our Prophet was sexually impotent. This is what they're trying to portray. Our Prophet was delirious. This is what they're trying to, our Prophet used to have false memories about having sex when he never, Prophet Moses was running around naked so people could see his testicles. This is what they're trying to, and they defend these things. So when it comes to defending the honor of our prophets, nowhere to be seen. In fact, they push this garbage. And then when you ask them, they say, oh, but Ibn Hajar, by saying this is wrong, we are embarrassing Ibn Hajar. I couldn't care less, mate, about embarrassing Ibn Hajar is not my problem. He's a great man, did great works. He's not God. I don't worship Ibn Hajar, and neither is he the messenger of God. He's a man who came. He's a great man, did many things, and like any other man, he would have made mistakes. Why must I blindly follow him? Let me tell you something, people. Let's say it is the afterlife. Let's say you come face to face with the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Let's say he says to you that you, to me, he says you heard this filth they attributed to me. This garbage that you heard. This kind of impurity that they attributed to my name. Yet you stayed silent. Yet you did not speak out against it. This is the least commitment as Muslims. That we condemn filth that these stupid people through their naivety are attributing to our Prophet. So this is my message, and this is the most important thing that I'd like to say. This is not about just trying to attack certain books or certain people. I've got no interest in attacking Bukhari per se, but I've got a problem when Bukhari becomes the most influential book in Islam, more influential than the Quran. And that is the truth, goddammit. The truth is, in theory, nobody says the Quran is on par with the Quran. Bukhari is on par with the Quran. Nobody says that in theory. But in practice, what they do say is after the Quran is the most authentic. But in practice, Bukhari defines Islam much greater and in many more ways than the Quran does for us today. The way Islam is shaped, it defines Islam, Bukhari's impact on Islam is much more influential than the Quran. That is the truth. Let's just be honest. People take all their rulings. Why? Because they take it through here. They don't take it through the Quran. The Quran says there's no force in Islam. There's no coercion. There's no compulsion. لَسْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِمُسَيْطِرٍ and لَا إِكْرَاهَ فِي الدِّينِ and all that. People say, but it doesn't matter. There's a hadith in Bukhari. We can force people. We can kill them if they abandon faith. People like to push this. We can blackmail women into marital rape by emotionally blackmailing them. This is what they feel because we've got a hadith. What does the Quran say? The Quran says, "Ashiruhunna bil ma'ruf," that you must go with kindness and grace. Oh no, but it doesn't matter what the Quran says because we've got a hadith that states that you can blackmail them emotionally into just raping them. Well, emotional kind of, they have to give you sex because it's, and we're using the Prophet's name, which makes it even worse. It makes it despicable. This is a disservice to our Prophet. If we had any love, if we had an ounce of love for the Prophet, we would never tolerate such nonsense being attributed to our Prophet. And I've shown all those hadith. I've shown chains are weak. I've shown the whole book is questionable. And then these people come back and, they still don't answer any of my questions. And there's other hadith like Ustad Muhammad ibn Muhammad Khalid has said, I saw my Lord in the form of a curly-haired, beardless young man wearing a green robe. That is true. That is a really problematic hadith, which Ibn Taymiyyah did validate and consider sahih. So this is my point, okay? So when I sometimes take the kind of mick out of certain things, I do this, it's because we don't need enemies today. We are our own enemies, okay? We have done a disservice to Islam. Okay, so with that, I want to wrap that Bukharigate. I really, these will be a separate clips on YouTube as well. If people feel that they can answer, there's no way they can answer. They can do silly acrobats and try to justify these hadith, which I think is a disservice to Islam, but they can't prove Sahih Bukhari going back to the Imam. They can't answer the manuscript discrepancies. They can't answer what was the Arabic that Ibn Malik and Yunini were correcting, because they spent a whole, like a lengthy time correcting the Arabic of Sahih Bukhari. What was it that they were correcting is a big question. They can't even, and they can't validate, no way, and vouch for Farabri, who is the sole person who Sahih Bukhari rests on. So these things exist, and if people feel they can, which they can't, I'm happy to have that dialogue. Right, other than that, let's take a few questions, and then we gotta... You see, Zach Mustafa said, I totally agree. People are more scared of offending some uncle than offending the honor of the Prophet. I agree. Look, don't get me wrong. I love our heritage. I love our scholars of the past. But as Imam Malik said, look, he said everybody is expendable at the honor of the Prophet. Meaning that, look, he said every person, we can critique them. We can love them, but we can critique them. It's okay. We don't need to blind follow Ibn Hajar. I like Ibn Hajar in certain things. But look, Ibn Hajar... and Zahid al-Kawthari brings Ibn Hajar's story about... Ibn Hajar also had he was a bit of a ladies' man as well. So so that side of his, I must say, we can definitely like and say, well, he used to have this thing with... obviously, like an infatuation with women, as you do, as most men do. So on one incident, they say he followed this woman into the street to talk to her, and she had a she had her face covered, but she had really beautiful eyes. So he was like, wow. And Zahid al-Kawthari brings this, and when she, to talk to him, she removed the thing, and he was like, what the? But there's this other incident where he really used to like this servant girl that belonged to his wife, and he really wanted her. So, but the problem was she belonged to his wife, and he couldn't. He thought this one too dangerous, you know. So, you know, the missus. If I take her servant girl as well, think about that. Is gonna. So what he did is he pretended to get upset about something she did. So she kind of she served something, and he did some kind of like theatrical and said like, what the hell, you know, you can't even do this correct. So his wife was like, oh, I'm sorry, like, you know, like his wife was kind of trying to appease him that you know, she's always getting things wrong, it's her fault. And then he knew this would happen, so he said, well, why have you even got her? And she said, you know what, you're right, you know what, I'm gonna go and sell her, like I don't want her. So what happened is, he said, do that tomorrow, first thing in the morning. So she said, okay. Then, then he sent his own friend as an agent to buy her for him. So when she sold her, right, he bought her and kept her in this other place in the other part of the city. So then Ibn Hajar used to frequent. Well, hello. Well, fancy meeting you in this part of town. So what happened is, Ibn Hajar was with that, he had that girl over there in the other part of town. So she gets pregnant and has a baby. Now, so Ibn Hajar otherwise had 2 daughters with his own wife. So this one day, Ibn Hajar's wife's in the marketplace, and somebody tells her that, oh, congratulations, by the way. And she says, oh, okay, on what? And she says, you know, on the birth of Ibn Hajar's son. So she says, Ibn Hajar's son? What Ibn Hajar's son? Like, he's only got 2 daughters. She goes, no, no, not with you. That's one of those total cusses. No, not with you, with this other woman. So she was like, you know, like those Bollywood serial dramas, like, she was like, what other woman? And they were like, you know, the so-and-so she lives over there in those ends. So anyway, as women, you know, when women come to investigating, then they have this kind of like Sherlock Holmes gift of like, just, they can figure anything out then at that stage. They're just like, they can put together all kind of evidences, and she managed to track her down. So she turns up at her house, and when she turns up there, she realizes, oh, you, hi, dost, naraha, you betrayed me, so it's you. So what happened? She's like, acha, you come with me, girl. Nena, come this way. So she took her back home to her house. So obviously Ibn Hajar, unbeknownst to him, all this drama has happened. So he turns up home, just cool as always. Hello, mi amor, I am home. And he's like, what the he's like, what is she doing here? So that was the case of Ibn Hajar, Bichara, got a bit busted. But, you know, may Allah have mercy on him. I'm sure, like all of us, you know, the hearts of men are very, very fragile things. They yahan, wahan, so easily they can be turned. So I'm sure she was very beautiful. But, so yeah, so that was the story of, somebody said, astaghfirullah, brother, fear Allah. Yeah. Okay, I haven't done anything to the servant girl. That was his kid. I'm not the father. Why should I? don't shoot the messenger. I'm just telling you the story, for God's sake. So, why? That's a bit unfair. He gets to have the fun, and I get to be told fear Allah. What kind of justice is this? I'll tell you what. Let's take a few rapid questions. Tomorrow is Eid for many people. If somebody said, my attack on Bukhari is an apologetic maneuver attempting to make Islam congenial to a Western paradigm, which I think does not uphold the heritage. Oh, rather, if you're going to become a relativist, why take down the scripture to conform to your agenda? Well, oh, rather, Joe. Oh, Stalin, you. Look, if this agenda is simply inspired by Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth, if it's inspired by Elizabeth, Her Majesty, then it should be easy to respond to. You should just be able to say, guys, no hay problema. Frabri, you want vouching for Frabri? Here. You should be able to throw the vouching of people declaring him thicker like this. You want, so it should be no problem. You should be able to reconcile and answer all my problems, all these problematized questions, just very easily like that. Since, come on, think about it. If I'm simply getting this from Her Majesty and the secret services who want to, I don't know, take down Bukhari for some reason. I don't know why they want to take down Bukhari, but they want to take down, or I'm doing this, oh sorry, I'm doing this to suck up to regular Western non-Muslims. Okay. So this gets me more, so I'm doing this to suck up to the regular so what I'm saying to suck up to the regular non-Muslims is our Prophet was not a pedophile. Oh, but wait a minute, that sounds right, doesn't it? I mean, what I don't get how this works. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I'm supposed to diss our own Prophet to get back at them. Like, I don't know how. I just want to know how the logic inside your mind works. Like, I know, this will really get the kuffar. Let's cuss our own Prophet. Okay. Where's your wala wal bara? What is this wala wal bara Salafiyya concept? Jonathan Brown, I don't know, maybe about the age of Aisha, I'm going to reach out to him and see if that works. He doesn't want to debate me on this hadith authenticity of Bukhari. It's no es posible, you know, it's because there's nothing to debate. They know. I have given an open challenge, people. As the poet says, that ek teri barabari ke liye, you know, just to be on an equal plane with you. Khud ko kitna gira chuka hu main. Look how low I've had to drop my own standards, and I've had to, just so I can be on a par with you, so we can have this discussion. But it's not working. But maybe the other discussion. Can people become mahram through drinking milk from the same woman? People just go around and there's this particular woman and everybody just goes and... the ruling of Rada'a is to do with infants, babies only, up until the age of 2. That's all it is. Are all dreams of prophets wahi? No, they don't have to be wahi, no. Right, so let's take some... How an adopted son can become a non-mahram, can become a mahram to a mother who adopts. You see, Tariq Ali is saying, I reached out, never got a reply. I'll take a look, inshallah, at my messages. People say you can't settle in non-Muslim countries. Tell them to get lost then. Right, so we don't need the... You see, what was I saying? About this non-mahram thing, I think Islam was trying to create ease, like in certain ways. As to the infants, look, infants, if they've had the same kind of wet nurse or nursing mother, then I think that's fine. They've got a kind of bond, as the teaching kind of states. That's fine. As to if you adopted a child, how does that child become a mahram? Now, some people say, oh, I've heard these scholars say, oh, just get them to drink the milk of the woman. Like, how? I'm like, how does this work? So we just go around drinking women's milk. And some of the Salafis believe you can do this for grown men as well. So grown men. So if you want to get like, if you want to be formally friend zoned, if you want to be friend zoned beyond no other friend zone, like there is no escape, it's an inescapable, it's a friend stroke brother zone. if you really want to get to that zone, you have to drink her milk. Like, I don't know what sick games you guys are playing. How the hell does this work? Like, okay, right, so all I know is you guys, your imagination is rather nutty. These games you play, these games. So women don't produce milk on request, as very well noted. But what they're trying to say is nowadays you can induce milk through medication. So you can get medicine to induce milk, and then he gets to drink that milk. Just like, it's alright, I'll just take it fresh as it. What kind of a sick game is this? I'll take it fresh, sister. Oh my god, man, these guys have got they've got a crazy imagination. I tell you what, admin, put them on the WhatsApp group. I like their so coming back to this point, look, what I would say is that in this day and age, you know, the mahramiyah ought to, certain things ought to just stand qa'im maqam al-mahramiyah. That mahramiyah just occurs through that process. So for example, if you adopt a child, the adoption process becomes mahramiyah. That's what the fatwa that I would give. That if you, unless you're adopting a grown adult or like a borderline adult, you know, but if they were a child, then the child generally would gain mahramiyah automatically. So I would say that people, like, if you adopted a child, then him and your own children would be like siblings. And then psychology teaches us there's the Westermarck effect, that they wouldn't grow up with a sexual attraction to each other anyway, because they've kind of grown up around each other. So these kind of things are there anyway, but I would feel that the Sharia would say in today's day and age, the process itself is the ritual that would make them a mahram. So if you adopt, they are mahram, if they're a child, and that's fine. So this is, and you don't need to do any of this absurd, ridiculous stuff like make the child drink milk from the woman and stuff like this. And what kind of sick games are these? Even the child, like, can you imagine? They're like, "Here, we got some milk for you." Child's like, "It's alright, I don't drink milk." No, drink it. He's like, "Why does this milk look different?" Drink. Right. So this kind of stuff is just weird. Like, we need to stop making Islam be stupid. Okay, we are just stupid, and we are making the deen look stupid. The deen is not stupid. We are making it look like that because we're just stupid. So, look, mahramiyah is for a purpose. Let's just be honest. Yeah. If you got an 8-year-old to drink a bit of milk from a woman, let's just say, he's not going to physiologically become her son genetically and through DNA. That's not going to happen, is it? So the truth is, this is just a ritual that some scholars have mentioned in their books in the past. just a ritual. It didn't have any physiological impact. So the ritual can change. So in today's day and age, adoption can be an equal ritual. Like if you adopt them, this is it. You welcome them as your child and they become your child. And I feel that in this day and age, you can equally give them your name. Because it would not be fair on the child. Because if one child lived in this house and everybody else has got a different surname, and that child's got a different surname, then this just wouldn't be right. Like, because the child would just be, like, obviously feel kind of alienated, and the child wouldn't feel truly part of it. So there's no harm in giving names today. You know, the days of the Arab lineage and stuff like that has gone. It's gone. Like, we don't have lineages. Pakistanis, right? I can tell you as a Pakistani, I can tell you we are the worst on earth when it comes to lineages. Like, one, we don't know our lineages. Two, we give random surnames to each child. Like, it doesn't mean anything. There's so many Pakistanis, I'm telling you, that they get stopped at the airport when they're taking their children, because they'll have like let's say they'll have like 4 children, and 3 will have the same surname and 1 will just have a different random surname. Like, just because they like the flow. Like, they'll just say something like let's just say, and the girls will all have a different surname. So girls are called Parveen, Bibi, some Begum, maybe, I mean, that might, I don't know, but some still do have a Khatun, all these kinds of, they have a different surname. The guys will have a different surname. So let's say the father might be called something Khan, he'll call one Khan. He'll say, you know, I like the flow of the name. Like, let's just say there's a name like, I don't know, Ali Asghar. Like, this is a common name that some Pakistanis have. Because they like the flow, they'll just say, oh, we'll call you Ali Asghar. And so his surname will become Asghar. And that's nothing to do with the other surname. And then they'll just say, oh, we'll call you, oh, I like the name Sajid Mahmood. And they'll just give him the surname Mahmood. And each one has got a different each one's got a different surname. So for us, giving a surname to a child doesn't mean anything. Like, so we need to get out of this. And you know, this whole thing, look, many Asian women, when they marry, they take on the name of the husband, like the European culture. We're okay with that. We haven't had an issue with that. Haram, haram, haram. We don't say haram. All the Mulvis do it in Pakistan. All the Mulvis do it in Pakistan. The wife takes the husband's name. And if we're going to give a child who's gone through circumstances some ease and comfort by giving them a name, be open-hearted, yeah. Learn the true spirit of this deen, the compassion that the Prophet taught towards people, towards children, towards orphans. That's what this deen was about. Right, people, I think we got to wrap this up. It's gone on. It's been awesome. Those of you that are doing Eid tomorrow, I want to wish you all an awesome Eid Mubarak. Those of you that are doing Eid on Wednesday, Eid Mubarak, have an awesome time. It is about friends, family, things like that. And for many of us, it's just boring, and we probably just nap during the day. But I mean, alhamdulillah, regarding the Eid prayers, there was something I did want to say about the sacrifice. I'll tell you what, I'll just quickly say that as to which Eid is the right one, both are fine. Okay, you can, both Eid are fine. I mean, there's no big deal. Don't start fighting and stuff like this, people. It's so stupid, so silly. Regarding the sacrifice, I do think that, look, it is about time that ulama start exercising ijtihad. Okay, that I think, like the mass slaughter that takes place on Eid al-Adha, it isn't quite needed like that anymore. And maybe some ulama, it would be good if ulama started to exercise some ijtihad. And they started to say things like that you could have different, because look, this was Ibn Hazm in his Muhalla. He has, under the Mas'ala 977, Ibn Hazm mentions that for the sacrifice, وَالْأُضْحِيَ جَائِزَ بِكُلِّ حَيَوَانٍ, he says it's permissible for all animals, يُؤْكَلْ لَحْمُهُ, And he says whether it's a bird or you know, whatever people used to eat, whether they ate horses back then or camels or cows, or, and he mentions deek, even chicken, any birds. He says all of it is halal. And then he brings a hadith here from وقد ذكرنا في أول كلامنا في الأضاحي قول بلال, from Bilal رضي الله عنه ما أبالي لو ضحيت بديك. He says, I don't care if I sacrificed a chicken. And Ibn Abbas says, he brings a narration from Ibn Abbas as well. This is, and there's other narrations saying even an egg. Now, I'm not saying that these things, look, you have to do, but what I'm trying to say is when the hadith said every member of a family doesn't have to sacrifice, just do one per household. Because it was trying to show the relevance, and it was trying to, but today we've got so many, like the Muslims, we're like so many of us. And there's, in some parts of the world, a lot of pressure as well to kind of sacrifice, and people don't have money, and the value of these things goes so, it becomes so expensive, the kind of like inflation on just the value of cows and stuff like this ridiculously rises before Eid. And poor people really can't contribute all of a sudden. And really the deen began by coming for the poor people and then encapsulating everyone. And the poor people today they feel kind of like left out because they can't do anything. And it's about time we kind of bring an ijtihad that, look, it's not really, it's okay, like certain people can do it, and that counts for other people. It counts for a lot more people. You know, there's narrations that they can be from the household and outside the household. And maybe, look, there's Sahih Hadith saying people could offer chickens, people could offer their money. Allama Shibli had a fatwa in the late 19th going into century, going into the 20th century. He had a fatwa at that time saying that people ought to, because the Ottoman, the Ottoman state was kind of in decline, and they needed wealth and they needed money. He said that people could, instead of buying a kind of animal to sacrifice, they could give their money to them and make better use of that sacrifice, because they were kind of at that point they hadn't completely broken down, but they needed money. And what I'm trying to say is that, you see, this came with a certain message, and today it's become just about slaughtering, and I just feel that we've kind of lost that message. And Allah says in the Quran, look, لَن تَنَالُهُ, that your meat that you offer will never reach God. That why not? And I'm not against sacrifice. I'm not saying we shouldn't sacrifice, but what I'm trying to say is maybe because we've got millions and millions going on, the way the Prophet said each person in a household doesn't need to, you know what, all your family just do one. Now, he was trying to say that it was symbolic. Now, because we've now exponentially grown into just under 2 billion people, we don't, like, now maybe we could kind of reduce those numbers still, like you could be a part of that, but there's less people kind of sacrifice. And maybe your money could go to other things that are massively needed, or a particular thing of the time, or a particular thing. I'm just saying that I think ijtihad is needed. And I feel that we've kind of, you know, we're so away from that, that's all. Is eating meat ethical? I felt that, you see, it's eating meat, it's a way of nature, isn't it? I won't lie, I do love meat. And I love beef, chicken. I have this like weird thing, I want to also eat exotic meat. Like I want to kind of just to taste it. So I tried crocodile meat, I tried, and I think that these things are, I know we're on our way to creating meat in laboratories and stuff like that, but these things are just the way of nature. Like animals are doing it anyway. So, you know, it's like there was that poster that all these animals, there was like horses, this, that, cows, goats, chicken, and he said, where do you draw the line? And somebody just goes, right about there. That was so hilarious. And then there were all these other jokes in saying, well, if it was an apocalypse, I'll draw it here, and if it was on a regular day, I'll draw it here. And somebody said, if I'm trying to get with a vegan, if I'm trying to pull a vegan girl, he said, I'll just draw it here. But I don't. The thing is that, look, I'm not anti eating meat. Okay, I'm not anti that. But I am very anti the meat, the industry of the ethics towards meat, like the battery farms, the way they treat the chickens, the way they treat the cattle. In some places better than others. I'm very pro-organic, that kind of stuff, of meat, or of eggs, or of any of this kind of stuff. Because if you watch the battery farms with chickens, it's disgusting what we're doing. It is disgusting, and I think there's a responsibility. We have a huge responsibility to stop that kind of dhulm on creatures. They just put these bright lights on, thousands upon thousands, and feed them day and night, and the chickens become so fat in 6 weeks what would take them 9 months, and become so plump and fat that they can't even stand on their own legs because their legs are too weak for the weight. And they just grab them, chuck them, butcher them, make the chicken, make the kind of, burgers, and I feel that needs to be addressed. I'm not against eating meat. Personally, that's me as a person. I respect people who want to be vegetarian. Some Muslims of the past were vegetarian. The great poet Abu Amr ibn al-Ala was a vegetarian, as were other people as well. I respect that choice. Islam doesn't say you have to eat meat, but I'm against the brutality to animals. Alright guys, with that I'm gonna leave you to it. Have an awesome Eid. If you are on Facebook and you haven't liked my page, do like it. Like both of them. I've got, the Mufti Abu Layth, my regular profile and the public profile. Why are gold and silver utensils impermissible? They are permissible in my understanding. I've got a video clip before where I've shown that gold and silver are permissible, and even for men. And I've got a clip on that showing that several companions died whilst wearing gold rings. So, and Ibn Daqiq al-Eid said that anybody who claims a consensus is lying, because the companions died wearing gold. So, the companion men as in. But anyway, so people, with that, do reach out on my YouTube. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Snapchat, Malm2014, MALM2014. Other than that, inshallah, take very good care of yourselves. Have an awesome Eid, inshallah. People, much love, man. Kulla aami wa antum bi khair. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep you all smiling and complete with laughter. Alaykum as-salam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.